in the Himalayas, Tibet has through the centuries preserved its own ways and customs. Tibet's religious tradition is personified by the Dalai Lama, revered by his people as the living Buddha. These are films of the Dalai Lama taken in less troubled times. News now reaches the world that 20,000 Tibetans have risen with him against their Chinese overlords. A few years ago, Beiping had welcomed both the Dalai Lama and the Panchen Lama. Beiping had recognized the leadership of the Dalai Lama and Tibet's right to maintain its own traditions, although China sent troops to garrison the country. These films, made in 1956, show the Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama on a visit to India. Reports today are that the Beiping government has deposed the Dalai Lama and set the Panchen Lama in his place. The revolt continues. India's erstwhile visitors are today dramatic figures in a troubled land. These people are exiles from Tibet. Some of them had fled the country when troops of the People's Democratic Republic of China first garrisoned their country. They sought freedom in India. They pay their respects at the Samadhi of Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat. India reports that their ranks are being swelled by other refugees from Tibet, including the Dalai Lama. The ceremony is led by Silung Lukongwa, once the Prime Minister of Tibet, exiled by Beiping in 1954. Prime Minister Nehru, who considers Buddha the greatest Indian who ever lived, has granted asylum to the Dalai Lama, spiritual leader of the people of Tibet and of many Buddhists around the world. The deep-rooted sympathy of the people of India has been expressed in rallies demanding freedom for the people of Tibet. They accuse Beiping of disregard for human rights, and they call Tibet Asia's Hungary. At a public demonstration in New Delhi, members of all of India's major parties, except the communists, condemn the People's Republic of China. One of Mahatma Gandhi's disciples, J.B. Kripalan, is among the speakers at the huge rally. The people of India demand freedom for the people of Tibet. At the headquarters of the Congress Party, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, daughter of Prime Minister Nehru, gets petitions to grant political asylum to all Tibetan exiles. In Taipei, more than 300 Buddhist monks are in procession through the streets in another demonstration of sympathy for the people of Tibet. The white elephant is a symbol of immortal life. The monks lead prayers for all Tibetans who lost their lives and for those who are still fighting for freedom. The Dalai Lama makes his first public appearance since his escape from Tibet. In Tezpur, a tea-growing center of northeastern India, he is greeted by reverent crowds. People have come from miles around to receive his blessing. Dalai Lama acknowledges the welcome of the mayor and of the people of Tezpur. The Dalai Lama issues a statement condemning Beiping for breaking promises to respect Tibet's rights. Then he departs for his new residence at Mussoorie, the Indian resort. In the mountain resort 400 miles north of New Delhi, the people of Mussoorie await the arrival of Prime Minister Nehru. Their small town has become a center of world attention. It is here that the Dalai Lama of Tibet is living in exile. Prime Minister Nehru transfers to a horse to complete the journey over the hills to Birla House, where the Dalai Lama is staying. Here, the temporal leader of India meets the spiritual leader of Tibet for the first time since the Dalai Lama reached refuge in India. They greet one another with the traditional exchange of scarves. Have much to talk about, for much has happened since 1956, when the Dalai Lama last visited India. Prime Minister Nehru reports that the Dalai Lama told him of the growing resentment of the people of Tibet, of poor living conditions, and of the feeling that even the religion of Buddha was being endangered. The birth of Buddha is celebrated at Mussoorie in India, where the Dalai Lama has taken refuge. After a month of rest and reflection on the recent events in Tibet, the Dalai Lama leads a prayer meeting, the first since he fled Lhasa. The Dalai Lama speaks in Tibetan. He speaks of the recent misfortune of the Tibetan people, of the suffering of those who practice the Buddhist faith, and expresses sorrow for the great number of true followers who are enduring great hardships. He appeals to all to pray that these times of trouble, like the eclipse of the moon or the sun, may pass away and bring light for the doctrine of Buddhism to flourish evermore in peace and freedom. The Dalai Lama holds a press conference at his place of exile in northern India. 100 newsmen from all parts of the world come to hear the young ruler and living Buddha of Tibet, who begins by saying that he must break his long silence and speak out in behalf of his people. He terms it an appeal to all peace-loving and civilized nations. Speaking in Tibetan, which is later translated for the newsmen, the Dalai Lama charges that the Tibetan people are being exterminated, that their culture and religion are being stamped out. He reviews the history of Tibet's absorption by the People's Republic of China. He states that the Beiping authorities have broken the pledge they gave to him and to India's Prime Minister Nehru to respect the integrity and dignity of the Tibetan nation. Earlier in his statement, he declared that in the interests of his people and his religion, he was appealing to the world to protest against what he termed the harassment and persecution and terrible deportation and execution of innocent men. After these words, he states that Tibetans feel no hatred for the Chinese people. As believers in Buddhism, Tibetans welcome change and progress, but they will stoutly resist the oppression and plunder now taking place in the name of reform. Tibetans will insist on a return to the freedom they enjoyed prior to 1950. In answer to questions, the Dalai Lama indicates that he may take the Tibetan issue to the United Nations if no peaceful settlement can be reached with the People's Republic of China. Our cameraman revisits Mussoorie. The small Indian village has become a new focus for the Buddhists of Tibet. Mussoorie is where the Dalai Lama has taken refuge. Those who have escaped Tibet make pilgrimages here. Life goes on for the refugees, though their hearts are with their people in Tibet. They are saddened by the news that Beiping is imposing yet further restrictions on the Tibetan people. Thousands crowd the railway station in New Delhi to welcome the Dalai Lama, making his first visit to the capital of India since his escape from Tibet. There are shouts of "Long live Tibet's freedom" in one of the most tumultuous receptions in New Delhi's history. Immediately after arrival, the Dalai Lama goes to Rajghat to place a wreath on Mahatma Gandhi's Samadhi in token of his respect and admiration for the father of India. At Government House, the 23-year-old Tibetan leader is welcomed by India's President Rajendra Prasad. The Dalai Lama is reportedly planning a trip throughout Asia and around the world to plead the case of Tibetan independence. At the residence of Premier Nehru, Mrs. Indira Gandhi welcomes the Dalai Lama, making his first visit here since fleeing Tibet. The Dalai Lama plans to appeal the case of his countrymen to the United Nations. He charges the Chinese People's Republic with inhuman treatment and crimes in the invasion and subjugation of his country. In the Philippines, the birthday of the late Ramon Magsaysay is commemorated by the presentation of awards in his name to Asians who have made outstanding achievements in education, community leadership, and journalism. Among this year's winners of Magsaysay Awards are Edward Yon, editor of The Nation, a Burmese newspaper, and Abaya Batachi, editor of the Ceylon Observer. Diallo Tundup accepts an award in behalf of his brother, the Dalai Lama, honored for the defense of his people's right to worship. Among the other award winners are men from India, Spain, and the Philippines, who have made long-lasting contributions to the people of Asia. Nestled in the hills of northern India, the town of Mussoorie is a center of interest for distinguished jurists from 9 countries of Asia, Africa, and Europe. They have come here to interview the Dalai Lama, who has been living in Mussoorie since his escape from Tibet. The Dalai Lama meets the jurists from India,
the Philippines, Ghana, Norway, Ceylon, Burma, Malaya, Thailand, and England. They have formed the Legal Inquiry Committee on Tibet. The committee is collecting documents, statements, and other evidence for a report with particular attention to the question of violation of human rights in Tibet. The Dalai Lama thanks the Commission for its efforts to place before the world the true facts about Tibet and offers what information he has about the case in the hope that justice may be done.